Hello and welcome to this edition of In the House with Representative Jason Lewis. My name is Alan McDonald. It's my pleasure to speak for the community and have a chance to bring Representative Lewis into your living rooms and tell us about what's going on in the great and general court, the legislature.
Hi, Alan.
How are you doing,
Good,
Representative?
thank you. Great to be back with you.
Well, thanks. It's great to see you. I know you've been extraordinarily busy lately. We're in the middle, as people will be watching this interview, of 24/7, as they say, with legislation, and those of you who work in the House of Representatives are right around the clock on budget and so many major issues, and we'd like to bring a few of those out so people could get a look at them. But
That sounds
tell us
good.
a little bit about the frenzy of keeping up with it all.
Well, as you said, this is we're getting to near the end of the legislative session, and so a lot of legislation that's we've been working on since the beginning of the session last January is now coming toward the finish line, hopefully. And so the budget obviously is a big piece of legislation that we're working on. Also, healthcare payment reform legislation that we've talked about before, and we expect will be taken up by the House very shortly. It's big. We're also passed an economic development, an economic competitiveness bill last week that now will go to the Senate. It's some interesting new programs and initiatives in there to support our innovation economy.
Well, tell us a little bit. I think all of our viewers realize we're in a 2-year session, each of a 2-year period with the House and Senate, so that the 2011-2012 term for legislative activity is at the end of July of 2012, a recess from the day-to-day stuff on the legislation. But so many things accumulate from that period, all of 2011 into 2012, and the jobs bill, economic development and jobs, as we know, if it's not the number one issue, it certainly is to many individuals. But you've just done a big piece in the House on jobs and economic development. And
Right.
could tell us a little about the
Sure.
good things that we can see from
Sure. Well, it's something that the legislature has been focused on and spent a lot of time last year talking to the business community, large and small, talking to others in the who are our universities, for example, our community colleges, and others who are active in workforce development. Really trying to understand where are the areas that we can continue to invest and sort of further strengthen our economy. We've had pretty good success coming out of the recovery in Massachusetts, and our economy's been stronger than just about anywhere else in the country. And unemployment rate's lower, but we want to continue to invest, create jobs, and position us for the future, obviously, with global competition. So this legislation focuses in a number of areas. One is in the area of our innovation economy, high-tech economy. There's going to be a new innovation matching fund. So for every $3 that our universities are able to attract to support research and investment, the state will match that with an additional dollar. So it's a way to further prime the pump around research and development. A new talent pipeline, which will support student internships at local startups and high-tech companies. So the goal here is to encourage students to stay locally and keep that talent in Massachusetts. Also, the bill does a number of things in the area of infrastructure investment to support particularly local infrastructure investment. The iCubed program, which was very successful in supporting Boston's Innovation District. That's going to be expanded now into other areas of the state, so that's a good that's a good program. And then there's also some things in the bill, particularly for small businesses. Treasurer Grossman's initiative to take some of the state pension fund and invest it in local banking institutions that lend to small businesses in the state. That's going to be expanded in this bill, and also to create a new small business online portal so that we can provide sort of a one-stop shop in terms of resources that are out there to assist small business owners.
Great. So it's a lot of things, and it is about encouraging lending into economic activities. That's great, and very different than just contributing public money to, this is the Kurt Schilling situation that we're going through, is very different than putting up public money to invest in a company. It's attracting private money
Right.
and education and research money
Right.
into things that will create jobs.
That's right, exactly. I think those sorts of investments directly in individual businesses like Rhode Island did with,
Sure.
what's it, Software 38 or
That's right, you gotta
Kurt
say,
Schilling's company.
38
38
Studios,
Studios.
that's the number, right?
Right, I mean, those are, in general, those are best left to the venture capital and private equity industries to make those kinds of decisions. I think our role in government is to have an environment and an infrastructure where education is a critical piece of that, affordable housing, transportation infrastructure, the things that allow the private sector to flourish.
I think we keep learning that over and over at the federal and state level. I mean, worthy experiments from time to time on this, but mostly what you say, I think, is the way it's coming out, that if you set the environment and certain incentives, rather than just
Yes.
awards and grants, but incentives
Yes.
make a tremendous difference.
Right, I agree. And I think one of the areas I think that's in this bill and we'll see a lot more of, which makes sense, are public-private partnerships.
Right.
So rather than the government trying to do it on its own or nonprofits trying to do it on their own or the private sectors, how do we collaborate so we bring the strengths and the resources of both to bear on these challenging issues, like workforce development is a good example of that.
Workforce development, I was going to say, I think what I noticed in the budget that you passed or were working on, and yourself on a lot of things, workforce training issues. And more attention on that, I think, in evaluating the workforce programs that are getting public and private money, because they're public-private
That's right.
partnerships. Most of them are matching
Yes.
grants for training.
Yes.
But those programs that we hear back from employers and employees that actually result in career promotions, development, openings being filled, that's what we're really looking for.
Right, and I think the business community and then Governor Patrick's done a good job of this recently, have highlighted that even though we have 200,000 to 300,000 people in the state that are looking for work, there are well over 100,000 job openings.
Yep.
So it's a matter of having a skills mismatch between people who are looking for employment in those. So being able to make sure that that our recent grads and even those who've been out in the labor market for a while have those opportunities for retraining. So that they can fill those job
Well, it
openings.
seems like on that there's more attention in the legislature now, and probably even from the governor's office as well, on education as part of the workforce development, economic achievement. That whether it's early childhood ed or it's the community college situation of looking to help people get through to graduate with an associate's degree or even a certificate of achievement in certain areas. There's more attention on that, and you've been in the middle of that, I think.
I think that makes absolute sense. Particularly given the where Massachusetts' economy is. I mean, our whole national economy is moving more and more to an innovation economy, human capital, but particularly that's true in Massachusetts. And so we're seeing that in the healthcare sector, jobs that require either bachelor's degrees or beyond, and jobs that require sort of middle skills, so maybe an associate's degree or a certification. Seeing lots of those. We're seeing that in high tech. We're seeing that in precision manufacturing, education. So I think that focus on higher ed, but also the community colleges and sort of that what I often refer to as middle skills, is a very good important focus for the state, and I'm glad to see that there's more attention being paid there.
I was surprised to hear when we were looking at the middle skills program and STEM education, the science, technology education, engineering and math is the EM as we know in STEM, but the State Street Bank told us they have 5,000 people that work for them in Massachusetts that they consider to be STEM-related careers, and that everything, even in the finance banking area, I mean, I thought STEM was going to be related to NASA type projects. They say, no, there's more and more of the middle skills jobs require some kind of technical ability to work the internet, to understand how technology is mingled with all that we do these days.
Right. Now it's true. It's permeating so many different careers and parts of our economy.
Now you've been active on the foundation budget and the education education budgets that are so important to Winchester. For one example, there are a lot of things important to Winchester that you're in the middle of, but here's one where you have been active in the foundation budget funding at the state level, and I think with some success this year that you've been really hammering away at for a couple of years.
Yes, this is the foundation budget determines the education funding formula for the state and how much the state provides to each community to match the local resources that go into our K through 12. And this year, fortunately, the state budget is starting to recover from the recession, and tax revenues are picking up, so we were able to fully fund the Chapter 70, and that's very good for Winchester because that's almost $1 million in additional funding over last year. Largely driven by the growth in enrollment in our schools. Right. It's a great sign of the strength of our community, I think, that we've got lots of young families coming here and more students in our schools. It does present challenges, as we know. We've had capacity issues and we've had to invest in new school facilities. But it does also mean that we are able to get more state money to help support that, which for next year is really going to allow us to meet those enrollment needs and to make some targeted investments as well in our schools.
I think it's one of the tremendous success marks, frankly, for the town of Winchester over the last even 20 years, but at a time of very difficult budgets, and they've been difficult since 1980, but particularly in this last decade, where the economy is difficult as has been and people out of work, that we've been able to maintain investment in the schools and increasing enrollment in the schools at a time that we've also been able to handle our public expenses for town activities on the fire and the DPW and the police.
I think a lot of credit to our town, our selectmen, school committees, and town managers. It's how well the community's been managed. I mean, one of the few communities in the state that has a AAA bond rating, and we've had good reserve funds. And our challenges on the school side are almost unequaled in the state. I mean, we've gone from 2,800 students to now, I believe, 4,300.
Over 4,000.
Over 4,000 in the last decade, and there's a handful of communities that have seen that kind of growth. I mean, that's unusual because total enrollment statewide is flat to slightly declining. So that's been unique to us, and we've managed our way through that. And again, there's a lot of benefits to that too. It's bringing a lot of vibrancy into the community. It's good for our downtown sector and supporting our local businesses. But it has been a challenge.
It has been a challenge, I know. And but the state contributions in the foundation budget, which I know are near to 20% of the foundation budget, is helpful. And we would argue that the state has more responsibility than that. Frankly, I would argue that. With the special education needs and all, but we're staying with it, and it's and the help that we're getting though, and the work you're doing on the foundation budget is very important.
Well, good. We're going to stick with that. That's because we've still got, as you said, we still have, particularly in the area of special ed. I think there's a greater state responsibility there that we need to step up to.
There were so many things that you're in the middle of: transportation bonding, the healthcare piece, and I don't know which would be, or even beyond that, what would be of most importance or interest to folks. But healthcare is absolutely on everybody's mind. It's a national issue.
Yes,
we're leading the nation and getting attention to our own program on individual mandate, which is a 6-year-old program now, which is amazing to even think of. So we're not really revolutionary anymore. It's working, and it's an example in the state level. People could argue nationally whether or not they feel it's successful, but the polls for Massachusetts citizens still say that it is. But now we're in the middle of some very important legislation that deals with oversight on costs, not just access to health care and insurance for all, but how are we going to afford it when the average premium for insurance, the median is going past a 20% line of family income, going towards in the 2020s 40 to 45% of family income. We all know this, everybody in the system that's working on healthcare knows it, to get our hands around the cost aspect. So you've got a very, very large job in front of you in the House with a bill coming up. But how do you see legislative action in the next month or two on that?
Sure, I see that probably as, after the budget being wrapped up now, the single biggest priority to complete before the session ends at the end of July. And as you know, this has been a long road we've traveled. And even back in 2006, when the state really led the nation in tackling the problem of access to health insurance, which is really what we tackled then.
Yep.
And that was a partnership with hospitals, physicians, the business community, patient advocates. I mean, that's why it worked, because everybody came together. Even then, we knew that was really phase one. That was not the end. That was, the goal then was, let's make sure we can get to as near universal health insurance coverage as we can.
Right.
That's one leg of the stool, I would argue. That's access.
Yep.
The other two are quality of care and cost. And we've done some things in the intervening years to tackle those. And in many areas of quality, the state is doing a terrific job, but we know there's room for improvement. And on the cost side, we are fairly high cost, and the increase in cost has been consistent with the rest of the country. I mean, healthcare costs have continued to outpace inflation. That can't continue. So what we've been sort of, while there was all this noise and rancor in the national debate on healthcare, I think Massachusetts has been quietly working on, so where do we go next? And I think the plan that's before us, generally, I think all the stakeholders have bought into, and I think it's really going to once again put us in the forefront of the country. And really I sum it up, I think what we're trying to do is move from a healthcare system today, which is really about treating people when they're sick,
Right.
and for the most part does a good job of that, but it's costly.
Yeah.
How do we transform it into a system that keeps people healthy?
Yes.
So the focus is on, first and foremost, keep you healthy as much as possible, keep you out of the hospital and the doctor's office. And that's a way that will keep people more productive, better quality of life, and will also control healthcare costs. So that's the change. That's said simply. To make that happen is a lot more complicated and involves changes to how we deliver care, how we pay for care, how we provide incentives for our hospitals and our physicians. And it's a very significant change. So we have to do that carefully, slowly, and we don't want to put at risk our this sector of our economy, which is more than
I think you're
more than
capturing
15%.
folks' attention on that, because as I look at the healthcare system over the last even couple of generations, but activity from the employer side and the hospital provider side has recognized, certainly since the 80s anyway, the 1980s is when that managed care push really came for the first time since first dollar coverage on insurance. That's the late 40s to the 80s, so really 40 years almost, before the idea was that third-party payers weren't necessarily going to be able to bear the burden of continuing supply and continuing demand with third-party pay. That somewhere along the line, the law of economics had to come into play, and so managed care was the attempt to cover a certain population with a certain set of procedures. But of course, if people went outside a network and you couldn't,
Yes.
people wanted choice, we wanted them to have choice.
Yes.
It didn't work in that instance. But there was a tension for the first time we felt on the employer side to something other than just the fee for service paying for a
Yes.
particular service, more in the management of
Yes.
the disease, right? And you've been working on that. And I think that, again, I think you're going to see groups come together, employers, physicians, hospitals, to say we're not just in the business of treating people who are ill, but we're in the business of managing a population for
Yes.
wellness.
Yes, absolutely. It's a change in thought process, and it's a change in orientation. And we do need to, the way that the care is delivered and the way we pay for care has to support that. And we've got great examples already of where this is happening effectively here in the state and around the country. I was just visiting with Winchester Hospital recently, and the hospital actually has a community health institute that some of our viewers may be familiar with, and the hospital's been investing in this area for well over a decade in terms of being out in the community, working on programs that deal with fitness, with nutrition, with pediatric asthma management, smoking cessation, a whole range of things. In other words, not waiting till people are going to arrive in the emergency room because a child has another asthma attack, but what do we do working with families, schools, on a range of different health conditions that are manageable and preventable. So that's the example. I think we're seeing it right here in our community, but we have to help the folks like Winchester Hospital to do a lot more of that, because today that's not really what we reimburse.
Right, we absolutely, the economics are different.
Yeah.
We've built up a system, again, over the whole last half of the 20th century with a lot of subsidy, private and public subsidization for building a healthcare system that's the envy of the world, frankly. And of course, now we want people to have access completely to it. But the economics have built in an overhead that needs to be changed, shifted, because it's not going to be just for taking care of people that show up to get care, but reaching out to them.
That's right. And if we don't, we will find increasingly care will not be accessible to people, because, and we're seeing that already even in our state where we have close to universal coverage. The premiums keep going up, the co-pays, the deductibles, the co-insurance, so the out-of-pocket costs keep going up, and so and this is a huge burden for employers and small businesses in particular.
Well,
so that's that. If we continue on this path, you know, if care is not affordable, then by definition it's not accessible.
That's right, and it's going to be shifted more and more to individuals too, as the economics change on it being able to be part of a workforce. It's going to, I believe, always be employer participation with it, because I think most all employers who are in the system want to stay in the system. They just need help along the way from the individuals. But there's so much more attention to it. But this is great.
And it is. And the reason I've been so focused on this in the time I've been in the legislature is because healthcare obviously is a hugely important, something we all depend on. It's life and death. But also because if we can get a handle on our healthcare costs, which is the single biggest cost driver for local and state government and the federal government, that will then allow us to do a better job investing in education, in transportation infrastructure, in housing, and the other things that we know are important, going back to our earlier discussion for what makes Massachusetts a great place to live and work and build a business.
Absolutely, it's a big,
it's all
big piece.
interrelated.
Big piece, and I think that the success of the 2006 bill, as you've pointed out, had to do with people pulling together, not arguing and trying to break it down after it got enacted. And if we can come together again on the bill that you're working on now, we'll see the details. I know haven't been ironed out yet, but
we're working our way through it, and I think this time is even more challenging than last time.
I think that's right.
But I do give a lot of credit to, I think, the governor and legislative leaders in this area have spent really the last 2 years. In fact, Representative Steve Walsh, who's my colleague, who's the chair of the Healthcare Financing Committee, told me the other day he's had 600 meetings in the last year with everybody who has an interest in this. So nobody can say they didn't have a seat at the table or a voice in the process. Doesn't mean they'll be happy with every single thing that we do, because we're balancing so many competing interests.
That's a very important point to me that you just made, and that is that those 600 meetings. When people, as I've read from time to time, say, gee, a 2-year legislative session, why does everything happen at the end? And there's not everything, but why does so many things happen at the end? To me, it's because you have to prepare on the big issues, on major transportation, major healthcare, major education issues. You can't meet the first month of a 2-year session and say, here's our bill, we've got it done. You have new people coming in, sometimes to the executive branch, sometimes to the legislature, new chairs. And you need time to examine. I know with the Business Roundtable and the things, we always looked at it as a three-step process. One, what issues are we going to deal with? Secondly, can we educate ourselves well enough to be somewhat intelligent on those issues? And thirdly, if we could ever get there, independent thought on what would be successful in managing the issues. You didn't always get to the third level. If you did, that was great. But you can't just jump in and say, here's the answer.
That's right. Well, I appreciate that pat on the back. I think that's part of it. I would have to admit there's some procrastination that may go on.
It takes a little while.
You know, it's just like a high school or college student. Sometimes it takes a deadline to push you to get it done. But,
this is
but
true.
yes, I think there is also the fact that you need to do a lot of homework to get prepared on these big, complicated issues.
Tell us a little on the personal side, because these half hours go so fast, but we have a few more minutes. But you have been awarded a few things, I think, even recently. But there was a humane. We had a headline about how humane our representative is, and we know that's true. But tell us a little bit about the attention.
Well,
that
one of the interesting things about being in office. It's a great privilege, and I get to meet so many people. And as you know, my main priorities are our education system, healthcare, making sure our government works well and is smart and effective and efficient. Those are the main things I spend my time on. But I also get to talk to constituents in Winchester and the other community I represent, Stoneham, and I hear about all their other interests and issues. And one thing that a lot of people care about is animal welfare issues and how they're treated. And that they help me make me aware of an issue that's out there with particularly related to farm animals and some of the confinement practices that are used. And I was able to file legislation to try to address that, and that's really making some progress. So I was recognized by the Humane Society for the work that I've been doing there. So
I think that's great.
it's not something I can spend a lot of my time on, given local issues and the other things, but when I can, and
Sure.
I know it's important to a lot of people, then it's something I'm pleased to be able to work on.
Well, I think that you do a good job balancing all those things, and I know that not just yourself, but when people run for office, almost always they really see the opportunity to do good things, and then there's so much flurry of activity.
Yes.
When you're in, there's so many draws on your attention, it's very hard
Yeah.
to then stop and say, I want to do one or two special things.
Yes.
And so it's very good that you're able
so
to do that.
you have to be careful about picking
Oh,
and
yeah.
choosing and set, just like anybody does, setting priorities.
And then, of course, there, maybe put it under the ribbon cutting category, but the fun part of it.
Yes.
I know you had the Boston College hockey team in recently.
Oh, that was great, great experience, and of course my predecessor, wonderful local leader, Whip
Sherman
Saltmarsh,
Saltmarsh, yep.
who's a great Hall of Famer at Boston College,
sure is.
and it
Yes,
was
he
a
is.
proud moment for him. He was beaming. For being back at the State House, and there was a special meeting in the Speaker's office to welcome him and Coach Jerry York and the team.
Right, great.
And then we recognized them in the House chamber. So
Well-
quite an accomplishment winning the NCAA.
Well, it sure
title.
is. I mean, it used to be that Eastern teams in hockey couldn't win the Nationals very often, except that when Representative Saltmarsh became a freshman at Boston College, BC had won the Nationals the year before he got there. And then, as Whip likes to tell a story, the freshman team at BC beat the varsity. But they were very good. But I know that he was thrilled to
Yep.
be able to be in there with the team. And, of
Yes.
course, what a nice recognition. But you were good
Yep.
to
Oh,
be in the middle of that.
It was great. And back home, I mean, Whip and others, and Paul Manganaro and others are so involved in building our new facilities at Manchester Field, and we're getting close now to being able to also build the track. We've got a new project that the soccer club is undertaking off of Cross Street to build new soccer facilities.
Fabulous.
The new Vincent Owens School
Yeah.
is going up, and the Wedgmere Station improvements. So there's there's some good investments taking
I
place
had
locally.
a young man who just bought a house in Winchester and is moving in next month, had his father in town, and I drove his father around, who happened to have graduated from Winchester High
Okay.
School 52 years ago and hadn't been back for a while. So I drove him around because he couldn't get over all the things that were happening just as you described. And I took him down to Knowlton Field, and I took him over to the VO project and around, and of course the widening of Abidjona,
Yes.
and on and on. And he said, wow, we're really paying attention. So that's a nice mark.
Yes, yes.
And to that point, and you mentioned Paul Manganaro and the work that he's doing, it's just fabulous. But we just had this particular week, the Citizen of the Year
Yes.
dinner. You were there, made a nice presentation to Helen Babcock, and that was a very nice choice.
It was. Well, and you're a former recipient.
Long time ago, you
of-
good memory.
Not that long ago. That's a great honor. I mean, there's been now, 33 years that the
33.
Chamber of Commerce has been honoring a Winchester citizen. It's a great accomplishment, and terrific to see Helen Babcock honored this
It was
year.
a real treat. And that first one 33 years ago was one of your predecessors,
Yes.
Representative Harrison W.
Harrison,
Chadwick.
right.
And,
And then I think Whip Saltmarsh was the second.
Whip was number
honoree.
2, that's
Yes.
right. And so we've had very, very good representation. You're following a nice line of a legacy of talent in the legislature from our good town, and we appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
Love these sessions, and I'll look forward to the next one whenever it may be, but unfortunately, we're coming down to the end of the half hour. It just goes by so quickly, but I really appreciate it, and I know the people who watch this appreciate the chance to have your comments on these issues that we see a little blurb of a headline here and there, but I would like our citizens to understand the depth of the issues that you dive into, the depth of the education, transportation, healthcare, and always a concern for how it affects the community level, and it's greatly appreciated.
Well, thank you very much, Alan, and I always welcome feedback and input as well, via email or phone calls or Twitter or Facebook, whatever works for folks that are out there.
Great. Well, I want to thank everybody for watching this issue of In the House. It's been quite a pleasure to hear from Representative Jason Lewis on the activities that he's engaged in, and all for our benefit, and we appreciate it. Thank you for spending time with us.
Thank you, Alan.
Thank you very, very much. We'll see you again in the next edition.